Some of you, like myself, may be wondering whatever happened to the change.org petition to overturn the Abu Dhabi 2021 result. So I thought I'd have a look. I've had a look on the change.org website, gone into their search section and searched Abu Dhabi 2021 and found this petition. And the petition details are here. Overturn the decision of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Lewis should be the winner. So this petition was started by Patel Gordon Bennett. It has received so far 108,675 signatures, which in the scheme of things, considering that most people can't even be bothered to even put themselves out just to sign to lodge their protest, okay, can't even be bothered to do that. The most that they can do is click a thumbs up on social media. That's the level of people's apathy. But this is what he writes, Patel Gordon Bennett here. It says, I believe that justice was not served on Sunday, December the 12th, 2021, when the FIA stewards denied Lewis Hamilton of his win of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. With less than one lap remaining, some lapped cars were allowed to pass the safety car, which does not comply with the rules of the F1 sport. This gave rival opponent Max Verstappen the opportunity to overtake Lewis Hamilton and win the Grand Prix. If you're an advocate of justice, honesty, and fairness, please sign this petition. Leaving this decision as it stands will send a very wrong message to youngsters and future racers. Okay, so that was the justification for beginning the petition. And as we can see, we've got 108,675 people have signed it. And then decision makers, F1 motorsport spectators. Now, F1 motorsport spectators as decision makers, as if we have the power to make that decision ourselves. I don't understand what that is all about. Updates are that 1 year ago it hit 100,000 supporters, and then reasons for signing. This are the comments that people have made, and I'm not going to go through them. You can do that yourself if you wish to take a look yourself. Because justice was not served yesterday, and the FIA cheated their own rulebook. A momentous occasion was ruined by an unbelievable cock-up / robbery. Now, one of the issues that I have with the whole process of this is that there's 108,000 people, 675, so nearly, closing in on 109,000 people have signed it. And they know that it's wrong, because that's why they have signed it, that's why they've taken the effort to sign it. But how many of those 108,675 people have seen my videos and actually know the truth? How many of those 108,675 people who have so far signed this petition, even Patel Gordon Bennett here, sorry for calling him Gordon, Patel Gordon Bennett, who started the petition, has he actually ever seen any of my videos? And does he really know the true extent of what took place in Abu Dhabi 2021? 108.7 million people viewed that event globally. And the vast majority of those people, well over 100 million of them, will not realise. Okay? Probably over 108 million of them, virtually all of them, will not realise the true extent of the corruption. They've been fed narrative by media, who are the people who inform them of what they were seeing. You are watching this. Oh, you are watching this exciting finale to a race. What are you going to see? These are the possibilities of what you may see. Oh, this is now happening. Wow. Right? That is what 108 million people were fed. They weren't exposed to the truth because the media has never exposed the truth. The truth of the matter is that the media that were commentating on that sport before the so-called human error by the race director even took place, they were lying about what was even possible. They were firstly saying there's bound to be a couple of laps, racing laps remaining as soon as Latifi crashed, when the data suggests that such an incident takes 5.5 laps out of a race before racing resumes. There were only 5.4 laps remaining for Hamilton when Latifi crashed. So the data would say absolutely this is going to be a safety car finish, and yet straight away the commentators were saying there's bound to be a couple of laps. They then were suggesting, are they going to leave those lapped cars in situ and resume racing with those 5 lapped cars that were in place? There were only 3 at the time of the crash. When Max pitted, Leclerc and Vettel effectively unlapped themselves from Max. Lewis, they were still lapped in relation to Lewis Hamilton, but they then became cars that were then in between Lewis and Max. So the commentators of the sport were communicating to the global audience that it was possible to resume that race with them 5 cars in situ in between first place and second place. That's categorically not true and hasn't been allowed in the sport since 2012. There is a reason for that, and the reason has never been communicated to the world. The purpose of doing the unlapping, which is mandatory, is that at the point in time Nicholas Latifi crashed, all them racers are racing around that track. What happens is an incident neutralises that race and the field bunches up. All the previously gained advantages are wiped out. But the problem is Lando Norris at that moment in time was in 8th position and Pierre Gasly was in 7th position. The leader, Lewis Hamilton, had made it around the track and passed Lando Norris, but he hadn't quite made it to Pierre Gasly in 7th. Because a safety incident occurred, the safety car is deployed, and the Lewis Hamilton and all cars behind him have to line up behind Hamilton, and they all bunch up. But what this means is Pierre Gasly, who was less than 12 seconds up the road from Lando Norris, the car that Lando Norris was competing with, he disappears off around the track and joins the end of the safety car snake. So from just being less than 12 seconds behind the guy that he was chasing, the safety incident causes Norris to lose a lap on that competitor. Hence, the regulations dictate that those cars that have been lapped have to be released, and that safety car stays on track for a further lap to afford those released cars the opportunity to try to make it around that track and link up with the back of the pack so that it creates a snake of cars in the correct race order with all of those previously built up advantages neutralised. And that condition applies to all of them competitors. That is what you see happen every time. But if you go back to the recording of that race and you listen to what Martin Brundle and David Croft were describing, it is not in accordance with those rules and they are lying to you. What you hear is Formula One, F1 TV, who create the global feed. They pick and choose which camera footage to show you. They pick and choose which radio messages to interject with between the teams and the drivers. They were lying to you by selecting messages that created a narrative. So when you heard the message, cancel that, lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake. Typical decision. I'm not surprised. It's classic, which was the message between Max Verstappen and his race engineer, which actually took place between turn 5 and 6 on that circuit. The F1 TV chose to play you when Max Verstappen was travelling between turn 9 and turn 11 on that circuit, having edited out all of the pauses in between the conversation. They played that to the global audience at a point in time where there were marshals still on the track clearing the incident. That was the reason that the lapped cars weren't allowed to be being overtaken, weren't being released, which meant the earliest that they could be released was on lap 57, which dictates lap 58 has to be a lap whereby that safety car has to remain on track. That has never been exposed to the world in that manner for those reasons. Why? The reason is the media are paid to validate the narrative that is dictated by the corrupt enterprise that fixed that result. They fixed that championship, and that is a fact. During that safety car period, if you go to each of those driver cameras, you will hear messages between drivers and their race engineers, and each of those teams' race engineers were suggesting to the drivers, we may restart like this. That is contrary to the rules of the sport. That indicates that each and every one of those Formula One teams was complicit. It indicates that prior to that event, there had been an agreement whereby teams had signed up to this notion of a racing finish. That has been presented to the world. That has been presented to the world as being normal and as being acceptable. That is the contrivance of an outcome of a sport. That's manipulation of a sport. That is illegal and it is fraudulent. If you took this in the context of football, you could not have the two teams that are contesting the World Cup final agreeing beforehand that either, we'll make sure that this game ends in a penalty shootout, or alternatively, agreeing we'll make sure that this game doesn't end in a penalty shootout. So ref, you do what you've got to do to ensure that we make sure that we get that outcome. That is fraudulent. They don't expose that. They never explain that to you. Instead, they validate it. They use it as a reason for what took place having taken place. In addition to that, within motorsport, there is an appeals process. After the event, Mercedes appealed to the governing body, the FIA, to say to them, you have broken the rules of your sport, and therefore we need to reinstate this result to be the running order behind the safety car. When you look at the details of what was presented at that appeal, it is entirely corrupt. Entirely corrupt. Nothing has been done about it. Nothing has been exposed about it, other than what has been presented on my videos on my YouTube channel. Now, further on from that, everything that has been presented by the media, especially Sky Sports F1 and also the BBC in the form of Andrew Benson, and everything he has written about it, has complied with a narrative. It has always been to authenticate and to validate what has taken place and suggest the notion of move on because Max fully deserved it anyway and it's time to move on now. That's all you've ever heard. Nothing has ever been exposed to the truth of the matter, and nobody has ever delved into the truth and the true level of corruption of all parties involved in manufacturing what took place. People don't realise this. As a governing body of the sport, the FIA has the ability to set a precedent. If something unprecedented happens, it's their responsibility to look at what has happened and do the right thing. by it. What have they done? They have claimed that they have done a report into the event and used that report to ensure that similar things will not happen in future. I will soon be doing a video which will go through that report and demonstrate to you all that that report could have been written and improved upon by a 14-year-old child. It is laughable. Who in media has ever done that? Who in media has ever picked that report apart and highlighted the failings of that report? And the answer is none of them. Consequently, of the 108,675 people who have signed this report seeking justice, I doubt that hardly any of them understand the truth. They know it's wrong, but they do not know the true level of the corruption. Of the global audience of 108.7 million people, I would take a wild guess that over 108 million of those people do not know the truth. This is a problem. So I have taken to YouTube to evidence what I am saying. I have made countless videos and I will continue to do so. I'm not doing this for clicks, for likes. I'm doing it to expose crime. I've reported this crime, this fraud, this contrivance in sport to the UK authorities. I've reported it to the UK Serious Fraud Office. They have dismissed it and done nothing. I've reported it to other forms of media because at that stage I wasn't aware of the fact that media are all complicit. They're all effectively owned by a limited number of billionaires, and they will all comply with the narrative that actually works for their collective. They are not exposing one another for their crime. That is the truth of the matter. So, what is important is that more people are made aware of the true reality of what took place. I intend to take this further, and I have a plan for the method and the mechanics of how something can be accomplished. But it's going to be a few months before I can actually begin that. In the meantime, what I need people to do is to raise awareness, because sadly the so-called systems that are there, that are set up to help us impact change, aren't effective. Because I looked at what happens. You can look on Google, type in change.org, and then go to the section about us as to how it works and how it's supposed to work. The world's platform for change. The world's platform for change. Okay, so there's a little video. It's change.org. People everywhere are starting campaigns, mobilizing supporters and working with decision makers to drive solutions. So, how change.org works: anyone can start a petition. People and organizations around the world start petitions for free. Petition starters and signers share the petition. Sharing the petition with friends, family and other supporters builds momentum. The petition reaches new audiences. Media coverage and offline events bring the petition to new audiences. Decision makers engage. Decision makers have the opportunity to respond to the petition. So this is the flow of events that are supposed to take place. Decision makers engage, decision makers have the opportunity to respond to the petition. And then victory is declared. Millions of people are working with decision makers to create change at the local, national, and global level. That is how they tell us this works. And if we go back to this petition, the petition is to F1 motorsport spectators, and the decision makers are supposed to be F1 motorsport spectators. So effectively, who has actually taken note of what this petition is about? Who has done anything about it? And the answer is nobody. Okay, the answer is 108,000 people have signed it in protest that something was wrong, and it is just sat there. Nobody's doing anything about it. The decision makers. Well, who would need to do something about it? Well, that would be the sport's governing body, who had the power to do something about it, and they didn't. They've chosen not to. They've chosen to uphold corruption, which demonstrates that they are corrupt. Who else has had the power to do anything about it? Well, the media could have exposed it. They never have. That demonstrates their complicity with the fraud. They are part of it. They're an integral part of that fraud, and their actions have conditioned the masses to not even understand that it is a fraud. I have contacted the authorities that are supposed to deal with fraud. They have failed to do anything. And somebody has said to me, once a petition reaches a certain amount of signatures, believed to be 75,000, then it's supposed to go in front of UK Parliament to be put before UK Parliament to say, look at this, 75,000 people, in excess of 75,000 people, want this changed. What can we do about it? Evidently, or certainly, I've heard nothing about that process happening. So what's going on? We have this organisation, change.org, and it's clearly having no effect to this particular situation. So what we need to do is raise awareness. Those people that understand injustice are outraged by it, that made the comments because they know the significance of what took place and the impact that it will have and will continue to have. They need to understand the truth. And that truth that took place, the mechanics of how it took place, extrapolate into the rest of our lives. Them same mechanics of that situation occur for government decisions that impact each and every one of our lives. And we are fed a narrative by media. Ultimately, the government will make a decision that benefits billionaires. As you see, the government, being the FIA, the governing body of the sport, made decisions that benefited billionaires, that being Liberty Media, whose stock value increased by 4.8 billion in 2021. It benefited Red Bull, who are billionaires. Look at Red Bull and their shareholding. Oracle, their main sponsor, who Greg Maffei from Liberty Media, who used to work for Oracle. Oh, so there's no ties here. No friends at that level, is there, that are all doing things in contrivance to assist one another. They all made money. The governing body made decisions to enable that manufactured result. The billionaires benefited. The media conditioned the masses with a narrative to somehow justify and validate what took place. The truth has been hidden. And the authorities that we are led to believe are tasked to deal with this do nothing. The same mechanics happen in our day-to-day lives. The truth is suppressed, and we can only take the example of things like the post office scandal, things like the Hillsborough disaster scandal, things like what is being reported now about haemophilia patients, the scandal involving that, what was known, what has been covered up. This is happening all of the time. And this example of Formula One took place in front of an audience of 108 million people globally. It happened in front of their eyes, and people do not even know what took place. Even though they witnessed it, they do not understand what was being done to them. And this example needs to be used to wake people up. So, if you have any doubts about what I am saying in this video, take a look on my YouTube channel, Fixed, which is hashtag F1XED. There are numerous videos that are exposing the true reality of that situation, and I will continue to do so because I realise that people are not going to trawl through my back catalogue of videos. So I will continue to reproduce the evidence, and each time we see even more. And ultimately, something needs to be done and will be done. Thank you for your time.